What if a trade war meant to protect one nation's industry ended up building a stronger one in the country it targeted? In the Great North American Trade Shock of 2025, that's exactly what happened. The story began with Washington's push to protect American jobs at all costs. But the result was a high-stakes economic chess match between the US and Canada, affecting workers and families on both sides of the border. The weapon tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, the backbone of manufacturing. This bold move triggered a chain reaction no one fully anticipated. The US aimed to bring back manufacturing jobs, but in a deeply connected economy, pulling one thread shakes the whole web. This wasn't just about steel, it was about cars, jobs, and the future of North American industry. To understand how a policy to boost American industry led to a massive automaker's gamble on Canada, we need to revisit the moment the first tariff was announced. This is a story of action, reaction, and surprising resilience. It all began with a stunning declaration. In early 2025, the Trump administration slapped a 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum, citing national security. The logic? A strong domestic steel industry was vital for defense, so relying on even a close ally like Canada was deemed risky. This move shocked both countries, given their integrated defense and economic ties. The Canadian steel industry, long intertwined with the US market, was suddenly cut off. But things escalated quickly. The tariff soon doubled to 50%, turning a trade measure into an economic blockade. Orders from American customers vanished overnight, and Canadian steel became too expensive for US buyers. Cities like Hamilton and Sault Ste. Marie faced a crisis as thousands of jobs hung in the balance. The national security argument felt more like a tool for aggressive economic strategy than genuine concern. The US hoped expensive foreign steel would revive American mills and jobs. But this strategy ignored the complex North American supply chain where parts cross borders multiple times. The tariff hammer had fallen and the shockwaves were just beginning. American companies scrambled for alternatives, while Canadian producers faced immediate losses. The move was meant to rewrite trade rules for America's benefit, but the consequences would soon ripple far beyond Washington's intentions. The integrated nature of the industry meant disruption on both sides. The stage was set for Canada's response. Facing crisis, Canada acted fast. Ottawa's first move retaliatory tariffs on a range of US goods, applying political pressure. Next, Canada imposed strict export quotas on its own steel, blocking foreign steel from flooding its market. The message: Canada would control its own destiny. Most importantly, the government pivoted inward, launching a major initiative to support domestic producers and encourage Canadian industries to use Canadian steel. The goal? If the US didn't want Canadian steel, Canada would use it at home. Ottawa partnered with key sectors, especially automotive and construction, to prioritize local materials. This wasn't just about surviving a trade dispute, it was about reimagining Canada's industrial future. Financial support and streamlined regulations encouraged companies to build and produce in Canada. The proactive stance created fertile ground for investment. Instead of being a raw material supplier, Canada aimed to build a self-sufficient, integrated supply chain. The steel shield was up, and a new industrial strategy was taking shape. The groundwork was laid for a corporate decision that would soon make global headlines. Canada was ready to turn crisis into opportunity. As the trade war escalated, major corporations were caught in the crossfire. For Ford, the 50% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum was a logistical nightmare. Ford's North American supply chain was deeply integrated, and the tariffs threatened to send costs soaring. Instead of absorbing the hit or shifting all production to the US, Ford saw an opportunity in Canada's new pro-manufacturing climate. Ford announced it would move major production, including its entire Super Duty truck line, to Oakville, Ontario. By building in Canada with Canadian steel, Ford could avoid the punishing tariffs. Canada's new trade controls also allowed for bonded transport, minimizing duties on finished vehicles crossing the border. The move was a clever workaround, making financial sense and sidestepping trade barriers. Ford also invested in Quebec's battery materials sector, betting on Canada's future in electric vehicles. The shift was on, and it was happening fast. Ford's decision electrified the Canadian economy. The Oakville plant overhaul meant new machinery, advanced robotics, and thousands of jobs. The multiplier effect kicked in. Suppliers expanded, and steel producers in Hamilton and Sault Ste. Marie gained a massive new customer. The entire supply chain buzzed with renewed life. The Canadian government, both federal and provincial, provided strategic incentives and support, offsetting retooling costs and training workers. This wasn't a handout, but a partnership to secure Canada's industrial future. Ford's investment in Quebec's battery materials sector tapped into clean hydropower and rich resources, positioning Canada as a key player in the EV market. Hundreds of high-tech jobs followed, diversifying Quebec's economy. From Ontario's assembly lines to Quebec's processing plants, a Canadian industrial comeback was underway. The message to the world: Canada was open for business and ready to lead. The revival was real and the momentum was building. Ford's gamble was paying off for Canada. While Canadian factory towns celebrated, the story was starkly different across the border. The tariffs, meant to help American workers, hurt many communities in Michigan and Ohio. These states, deeply tied to the North American auto supply chain, felt the pain as Ford shifted production to Ontario. American suppliers faced tough choices: navigate new Canadian duties or lose business. Layoffs rippled through the industrial heartland, hitting workers who made everything from engine parts to seat frames. The very people the tariffs were supposed to protect became its first casualties. The integrated auto industry meant Ontario and Michigan were partners, not rivals. The tariffs disrupted that partnership, forcing companies to pick sides. Ford's move created clear losses for American suppliers and their communities. The pain in the heartland was a direct, unintended consequence of the trade war. As the dust settled, Canada emerged as a new automotive powerhouse. Strategic government support, a secure steel supply, and major investments from Ford created powerful momentum. Canada was no longer just an assembly hub. It was building a full industrial ecosystem, from raw materials to finished vehicles. The world took notice. Other automakers and tech companies eyed Canada as a stable, profitable home. Political stability, skilled labor, clean energy, and a commitment to advanced manufacturing made Canada attractive. New investments poured in, from EV charging tech to AI for manufacturing. Canada wasn't just replacing lost US trade, it was building something new and resilient. By focusing on electric vehicles and battery tech, Canada positioned itself for the industry's future. The balance of power shifted. Canada was now grabbing the steering wheel in key areas. A middle power, with smart policy and investment, was carving out a leadership role in the global economy. The question now: how high could Canada's new industrial ambitions soar? The real story unfolded in small towns and communities. In Oakville, Ontario, optimism returned. Real estate picked up, local businesses thrived, and new jobs brought a sense of revival. Hamilton's steelworkers found renewed pride as Canadian Steel built North America's iconic trucks. In Quebec's Saguenay region, new battery material plants promised high-tech, high-paying jobs for the next generation. Local governments saw increased tax revenue, funding better public services. Small businesses flourished, strengthening the economic fabric of these towns. The contrast with struggling US heartland communities was stark. For Canadian towns, the change was more than economic. It was a boost to spirit and purpose. So, did a trade policy meant to make America's industry great again accidentally create a Canadian powerhouse? The evidence is clear. Tariffs meant to cripple Canada instead sparked a robust, self-sufficient industrial strategy. Canada broke its dependency on the US and built a forward-looking economy. The US pushed and Canada pushed back, with smart strategic planning. The law of unintended consequences was on full display. American suppliers suffered while Ontario and Quebec saw a wave of investment and optimism. Canada didn't just weather the storm, it learned to thrive in it. Ford's big bet was a sign of this new reality, driven by the very tariffs meant to hold it back. The final verdict is still being written, but as of summer 2025, the attempt to isolate Canada has backfired. Did America First accidentally pave the way for a Canada First industrial boom? The answer, for now, is yes.